receiving your content, your audience will see a blah blah blah. It should work.
Stream is oh, so it's gonna be live?
Yes.
And then it's gonna be
So
live.
Yeah, I think it should.
Oh, wait, where did you go?
It's delayed.
Okay.
We should put. Can I drag the chat up? Can I do that? No. Okay.
Oh, it is delayed.
Yeah. Here.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. Otherwise, we'll be distracted by your own faces.
Alright.
Hi.
Hi. How are you? I think I should tweet really quickly that we're live because we're a bit late.
Sorry. It's my fault. Maybe I should do that. Then you can do it.
Oh, good idea.
Okay.
Hi. Just gotta say, big fan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You probably know about the read-along?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically we hosted a month-long read-along for all your books.
Cool.
We read the 3 of them and we basically hosted it together with Lotte and Herta.
Thank you for hosting.
No problem. We had all these fun challenges.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun with doing those. Some we took seriously, some we took less seriously.
Fair.
We had a dress-up challenge.
Nice.
And instead of going all professional and putting on a real kefta, I thought, you know what? I have a bathrobe.
Perfect. In olden times, when the Grisha could not make their kefta, they wore their bathrobes. It's a little known fact. So
it wasn't even a pretty one. It just had
no.
sleeve tights in different languages.
I've always thought, like, I have this really ugly bathrobe. It's this, like, dark, I call it the muskrat. I don't know what the Dutch word for that would be, but it's, like, it looks like gray mouse fur. Like, it's so ugly. But I bought it online where it was, like, charcoal, which sounds like a nice color. And then it was like, no, it looks like rat fur. So, but I can't quite bring myself to get rid of it because it's so comfy and warm. And I was like, when I go completely nuts, I'm going to start wearing it outside of the house. And people will be like, oh, there goes the bathrobe.
Yeah. Now my mom's in a folklore dance group, and so I could dress up in a traditional Turkish costume,
Cool.
which really looks like a kaftan, so that's really cool.
That's yeah, it comes from the word kaftan, so.
Yes.
Oh, didn't realize that.
Fun fact.
I realized that.
Yeah, I'm not that. I think we should start with some questions.
I'm ready.
Okay, first off, I'm just gonna ask something that I have been wondering ever since Ketterdam was first mentioned.
Okay.
We all know the character the Dark Heretic, that he was casually mentioned sometimes, but that he was actually the Darkling, etc.
Yes.
But heretic is the English word for the Dutch word Ketter, and the city is called Ketterdam. Was that intentional? Did you mean that?
Do you mean like was the Darkling there at the founding of Ketterdam?
No, I think like when you were writing, did you think, Easter egg, you're not gonna notice that?
I always look for meanings in the words, and sometimes I miss meanings, and sometimes I get them. But like that word Ketter was in, like I had like a whole list of things, and so I pulled it, and I thought, well, maybe somebody will enjoy that. But it was also, there's this the religion in Ketterdam is very much it's Gazin is like the god of industry and commerce, and I like the idea of this being sort of a heretical break from sort of the religion that you see in Ravka and in some of the other countries. So it's sort of owes its history to the Protestant schism,
Yeah. Because I noticed it, and I just freaked out when I realized it was just actually
That's very cool.
Heretic Town.
Everybody go party in Heretic Town.
Yeah. And I kept freaking out and telling it to everybody, and they were like, well, I did not notice that. I was like, wow.
Deep. Cool. Okay.
There are some questions from the readers,
Okay.
and they wondered how it really worked when Alina kills Small and she loses her powers. And like, how does it really work?
Well, asking how the amplifiers work is a little bit difficult because it's probably the most magical part of the whole Grisha universe. The idea of Rusalia and of more so the stag and the firebird, these are creatures that sort of operate outside of the small science and that are that are attached to the making, what Bagra describes as the making at the heart of the world in a way that no other creatures are. And there are other creatures in the world that are like that, and that we haven't met in the Grishaverse, but they occupy that space. So then, when Morozova brings these things together, and it's this way of accessing essentially the same thing, Morozov's abomination, but also this tremendous power that is sort of the root of all Grisha power. This is where this is sort of, you can think of it as almost like blowing a fuse, like it's this tremendous focus of power that then has to go somewhere, and it can't be contained in one person, and so it goes out to all the Altkazatia, all of the people, the sun soldiers, the soldat soul, who don't have power. That's really like the best way that I can address like the functionality of magical power in that moment. But the idea was always that Morozova was compelled to bring these amplifiers together. It was almost like he had an addiction to knowledge, and it's something that David recognizes when he sees these, the journals, and there's this obsession, and he can't not learn. It's the same way that when the Darkling can't keep from using his power, and from continuing to test the boundaries of his power, and Alina can't help it either. It's like, it's this thing that Grisha do. Yeah. And Morozova recognized this in himself, but also recognized the peril of that. So he thought, all right, well, I know I can't stop myself. I need to pursue this. I need to know what happens. And I know that somebody will need to bring these three things together. What is the safeguard I can build into this? And the safeguard is this: you will bring all this tremendous power together, but it will belong to other people. It won't belong to you. Yeah. But Alina even says there's no way he could have known that the person who would use this would be, a nobody, an orphan, who's essentially trying to save the world, not some greedy Grisha, quite frankly, like the Darkling, who was like, more power, more, that is, it was supposed, the repercussions are felt by her instead of by somebody who was really, who was pursuing this for selfish means. That said, a lot of people, including the Darkling, start out with very good intentions, which Alina has, but that doesn't mean they're not beholden to the same rules of the world. Okay, so that's the long story answer to that. Is there another part of that? Feeling now? No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay, maybe, yeah, so all the Orchestras get the power, but can they keep it, and do they give it to their children?
Potentially, they might pass it along to their children, the same way that Bagra passes her power on to the Darkling. But yes, they do get to keep it. The Soldat Soul are a new sort of race of sun summoners.
Okay.
I like this one. There was a question that was often asked in the wrap-ups, and everybody was wondering about it. If Alina had come into the Darkling's life earlier, would things have changed, and could the Darkling have been saved had Alina
this is a really interesting question. I had originally thought about possibly writing a sort of, for bonus content, an alternate universe where Lena came to the small house as a kid. Like, her powers had been discovered by the examiners in that prologue. But I will tell you something, there was no way to have her be there as a child with a Darkling, essentially as an adult, that wasn't creepy as hell. And this is something that, if you really step back from it, this dude is hundreds and hundreds of years old. And it's creepy, really. If you start to look too closely at that, it's unnerving at every level. So I think what probably would have happened is that he would have essentially groomed her in a different way. But she would have been, I think, doubly vulnerable to his influence. I think there's actually a lesser chance that the Darkling could be saved, because she would have been a less powerful personality and would have been a less developed person. And she would have endured less as a nobody. She would have probably forgotten a lot about what it was to be an ordinary non-Grisha.
And if Alina had been born in the same era as the Darkling, so if he wasn't 100 years
everybody's like, how do we save him?
Would it have been possible, do you think?
Look, there's nobody I don't really think there's anybody who's completely outside of the realm of redemption. And I think that had, I can't speak to like if she had been born in the same time, and because then you're talking about a very different character and a very different set of circumstances. But what I can say is that, it's not that the Darkling didn't have the potential for redemption and who didn't have any good in him. You're meant to see that there's a lot of nobility in him. There's a lot of good intent in him. But he's somebody who has truly lost an understanding of mortality and the value of human life because he's been alive for too long. And I think that, if this had not been a 3-book series, if it had been like a 10-book series or an 8-book series, there probably would have been a greater chance for him to be redeemed. He still would have died in the end. That was just always going to happen. He's meant to be a tragic character. And he is in many ways supposed to parallel Alina's own budding hunger for power. So he was always going to die, but he would have died probably with a greater sense of self-sacrifice than he died in this case.
Which character do you find hardest to kill?
I get this question a lot. I know people expect me to say the Darkling, but I knew for a long time I was going to kill him. And I felt, I still feel great sadness when I read those scenes or when I had to revise those scenes. They were very emotional for me. His death scene was very emotional for me, but particularly the scene where he's on the pyre. And this idea that he fundamentally did love his country, and he was trying to do so much good. He did a tremendous amount of damage, but he was not a character without nobility or without goodness in him. And that Alina is the only one to know his true name and mourn him, to me, is always sort of a very kind of emotional thing to write about. That said, the only death I really regret in the series is Harshaw. With Oncat. I loved Harshaw, and I loved writing him. And he has such a specific voice. I love how unhinged he is, and somebody had to die, and I didn't want to kill any others, but I'm also like, oh, I miss you, Harshaw.
I thought he was really funny.
He was funny, and I loved, I feel like, I wish I could have written, a whole series of, Harshaw and Oncat adventures, where they,
children's book series.
I have had, there twice, in, the course of talking to people about the books, twice people have been like, was Oncat a spy for the Darkling? And I'm like, well, Oncat was a cat, and Harshaw was nuts, Oncat carries on, but I do miss Harshaw a lot, and I miss writing him a lot.
If you turn the question around, were there also characters that you found really easy to kill and happy that they finally died?
Vasily, Nikolai's brother, he was really fun to kill. Yeah, he was delightful to kill, and I tried to do it in a really bloody way. His arm, ripped off. And I remember my editor being like, you need to be very clear that he's dead here. And I was like, okay. I'm trying to, I don't kill that many other people, do I?
You killed a lot of people.
I kill people.
The king?
The king isn't dead.
Not.
Yeah.
The king and the queen have gone to the southern colonies.
Yes.
You killed Mary? Is that in the story at some point?
So,
Sergei's girlfriend? That upset me a lot. That upset me so much.
Yeah.
The girlfriend gets ripped apart.
Marie.
Yeah,
Marie.
Oh.
Yeah. She dies horribly. And poor Sergei goes off the deep end.
Yeah, I was like, no, don't do it.
No, I didn't. I mean, I was sad to write Marie's death, but she, wasn't happy to write her death. I wasn't happy to write Sergei's death either. And he dies so horribly.
They all do.
They really do. I am very graphic in my death scene. And he gets torn apart, and she goes over a mountain, and he goes no, for the most part. Okay, I'll tell you one other I was glad. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the character. Was it Stig, the Fjordan that's traveling with them in Moon and Rising? Yeah, who sort of is collateral damage in this battle. I wasn't sorry to lose him because at that point, when I started Rune and Rising, I had 12 people who were traveling together. And I was like, oh my god, this is so unwieldy. There are so many characters and there's so much to account for. And once we paired them back, I was like, oh good, now I just have these characters that are traveling together. And even when they then split apart into 2 groups, there's something 5 to 6 people is really the maximum number of people you want sitting around having a conversation in a fantasy novel. So, yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Do another one.
Maybe it's time to talk about Nikolai.
Nikolai!
No, we're both really Nikolai fans.
I have noticed that the Dutch are very fond of Nikolai.
I'm really in love with him.
Yes.
Obviously, it was really okay. Yeah. A lot of people asked if Nikolai was just hungry for power, or did he just really care for Ravka?
I mean, I think that's an interesting question. I'm always a little hesitant to answer questions like these because I feel like we get Alina's POV for a reason, and that I want people to be interpreting others' actions. But I think it's pretty clear, at least it is to me, that that he really does care about his country. Now, that can be coupled with wanting to rule and enjoying power, and that's something that he does. He thinks he's the best at it, and he should be in charge. And sometimes he's right, and sometimes he's wrong. But part of the reason that I might someday want to write a Nikolai book is because I think there's a difference between thinking that you want to govern and then having to govern. And he has better training at it than a lot of people, but at the same time, Ravka is a country with a lot of big problems that can't just be solved like that, so, and I think it's worth keeping in mind that it's not like Nikolai's writing in being like, democracy for all, he's like, let's go monarchy, he still, wants to be running the show, so, but I don't think that makes him power hungry. I think it's sort of, some people don't want to rule. People don't want to be in charge. I'm one of them. I don't like to be in charge. I like until I don't agree with the decisions being made, and then I'm like, no, I'm taking over. But he is somebody who really does, and who finds that appealing. So yeah, but I think he does care very deeply about Ravka. I think he wants to do the best for his people.
Yeah, I was really upset when I read it. I was like, God, he loves Ravka. He's not a bad person.
But the Darkling loved Ravka too.
Yeah.
So, and Alina, I think, comes to love Ravka.
Yeah.
And Mal comes to believe in Ravka. But both of them, there's a line in it where, I can't remember, one of the people they meet is like, what has this country ever done for me? And I think that that's a reasonable way of looking at a nation. People assume patriotism when sometimes that patriotism isn't earned. And you've had a country that has for many, many years been led by a fairly incompetent monarchy and has become increasingly poor and had increasingly desperate straits. So I think it's natural for a lot of people to just be like, we're done with the land slobs,
There was another question about Nikolai.
He's gonna know what we're laughing.
Did we just pretend?
The oven made a noise, guys.
Yeah, and then Mirta jumped like a foot. Sorry. Yes. Serious questions.
People were wondering if Nikolai was a little bit in love with Alina, or that he just wanted to marry her for
Strategic
yeah,
reasons.
or both.
I find this so strange that when the number one question I probably get or used to get was did the Darkling really have feelings for Alina? And now I'm hearing all this. Did Nikolai really have feelings for Alina? And I feel like it's interesting because again you get the story from Alina's POV for a reason because you're supposed to be left to interpret these things. I think that Nikolai felt a great deal of affection for Alina and cared about her and felt he could potentially build a future with her. But I don't think he ever would have proposed to her had she not, initially, had she not had this tremendous power. That's not on the table for a prince. And he probably never would have taken notice of her. And he's quite honest about that. He's not somebody who's like, I love you, darling, he's very straightforward, and what he proposes initially is a marriage of convenience. I think that, the more alone he becomes, and the more he goes through, the more grateful he is for real companions and friendship. And I don't think that's just Alina that he feels that with. I think even by the end of the story, he feels that towards all of the Grisha triumvirate and towards even Mal as well. And I think at the end, when he's proposing marriage, like, they both know that this is really not tenable. Like, he needs to make a political match. He has a country that is literally, barely hanging on and is essentially still on the brink of war and has tremendous problems. Like, Ravka is a very unstable place to be, and then to be like, but let's get married, like, is not a tenable thing for him. Like, he needs to make a different kind of alliance. And she, I don't think, would want to live her life with a target on her back. But I think in that moment, he's been through so much and is feeling so alone that he is reaching out very desperately for a friend. So that's the best answer I can give to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there some questions on Twitter?
No, not on Twitter yet. I'm checking all the other social media.
Nobody. No.
There are lots of people watching now.
Yeah.
Hello.
I have a question about Six of Crows.
Okay.
Six of Crows, I'm never sure. Crows or crows? What is that?
Crows in English.
Crows?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm always
Or
confused about that.
Luchens. Yeah.
You've got a lot of Dutch words and Dutch names in your book.
Yeah.
Do you intend for the readers to pronounce them in the authentic Dutch way or in the American Dutch way? Because I can get behind both.
Honestly, it is really up to the reader. It is 100% up to the reader. Like, I think that there's actually some words that I think would be quite hard to pronounce in the traditional Dutch way. Like stadwatch, I think, is one of that's like
Stadwacht.
Oh,
yeah. Like there's a few things that don't scan right for Dutch. But I mean, obviously, I'm American and I imagine them with American pronunciations, but I think the only thing I would hold to is the names of the characters, like the main characters. I sort of feel attached to my pronunciation of them. And I think you could argue that, like, Jesper is actually Jesper because he's from Novia Zem and his father would be using the Zemini pronunciation. But I really don't. People can do it.
Yeah, because I saw a pronunciation video on Instagram and you said a few names and I got so confused about it because that was not the way I was used to saying them.
Yeah.
But I do get that.
How do you do the characters?
Well, we got a pronunciation
All right,
game coming up.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Here you go.
Here, we've got a few names and words on a list, and we want you to pronounce it your way, and then we'll pronounce it the Dutch way.
Joost.
Oh, yeah, Joost.
Nina.
Nina.
I mean, that's a Ravka name. Okay. Inej.
I'm not even sure if that.
Inej, though, is also it's a Suli name. It's not
Inej.
Yeah. Matthias.
Matthias.
That's not so different. I say Jesper. You say.
Yes, Jasper.
Yeah.
Jasper.
Kaz Brecker.
Kaz Brecker.
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 B-R-E. There's Brecker means something too. Ketterdam.
Ketterdam.
Geldstraat. Hotspot.
It's full.
I don't actually know what this word is. Tulpen?
Tulips.
Oh, but I don't use the word tulpen, do I?
We thought you mentioned it at some point.
All lies. Well, there actually are tulips in there, but I didn't. Yeah.
She's reading the Dutch version.
Okay, and then Listenlogens.
Do you know what it means, or?
Somebody told me it was like lies and deception or something like that.
It's probably me on Twitter.
Because I didn't, when I saw it, I was like, that looks nice. I have no idea what it means.
It was really terrible trying to translate the name, because you can't just say Six of Crows in Dutch. That sounds really dumb.
No, I think that the second one will be a little easier to translate, so yeah.
Is there a title?
There is, but we haven't revealed it yet. People think we have, but it's a decoy.
When the name was out, Six of Crows.
She's like, what is a decoy? Yeah.
When the name was
End of tour. All of that's throw it out.
When the name of Six of Crows was out, I saw you and a lot of other authors making up funny substitutions for crows on Twitter.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be something like that for the second book? Because
no.
oh darn it! Some of them were gold.
Thank you. Very. Yeah, that was when we were waiting for the cover reveal.
Yeah. I was waiting up, so.
Yeah, and I was sort of like, I didn't quite know what to do with myself, so I was like, 6 of bros, 6 of snow. So yeah, it's fun.
Right. Maybe.
Do you have any other questions on it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yesterday people were asking about Nikolai and Zoya, but personally I don't understand that ship. So where does it come from?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Zoya, so I kind of get it. Like, I love writing her, and I love her. I love the fact that she never, like, her personality doesn't change. Like, she's still mean at the end of the books, but you can be mean and also be loyal and strong and you know, hope for the best for people you care about. You know, actually, probably the line that chokes me up the most is whenever people mention the part where Zoya comes in the epilogue, when Zoya comes in and she gives Alina a kefta and says, "You'll always be one of us." So it gets me very emotional because she's somebody who, I don't know, I like Zoya's journey a lot in the trilogy because she really starts out as a mean girl, and she's somebody who in some ways experiences the Darkling's behavior in this profoundly betraying way, because she loses relatives in the destruction of Nova Creviers. And she feels this very deeply, and I think in the way that somebody who's like a young, passionate soldier who really believes, like she believes in him, and she's a little in love with him, you know, and then it feels like this very personal betrayal to her. And so when Alina calls her out and says, "What are you even doing here?" And she's like, "What do you mean, what am I doing here?" Like, she's a moral person, she's just not a kind person. So when I got a new car, I named it Zoya, because she's very pretty. But a real pain in the butt, so yeah.
We have a Twitter question.
Ooh.
Here it comes. Do you have any pets?
I do! I have a dog, and her name is Bertie. And I can't wait to see her when I get home. Being away from her is the hardest part of being on tour. I'm like, people, friends, relatives, no, I miss the dog.
What was it again, a schnoodle?
She's a schnoodle, she's half schnauzer, half poodle. She's basically a mutt. But she's adorable. And when I come home, she like freaks out. Like she freaks out. She makes these weird noises. She's just kind of like barks and turns around and freaks out. And we cuddle. And then she's like, "And I'm done." And then she's like, "I'm so mad at you for being away." So yeah.
I came up with a question.
Okay.
If you were a Grisha in the Grisha universe, do you think you would follow the Darkling, or would you immediately follow Alina? And
Oh my
would it take
gosh.
some time to figure out who to follow?
Wow, I've never gotten that question before. I mean, I like to think I would actually follow Nikolai, because he actually he has, like, his political platform is a solid one. You know, like, he has actual plans for the betterment of people's lives. That said, I don't know, I wrote the Darkling to be as compelling and charismatic as possible. I wanted to create a dictator that people would actually want to follow, as opposed to somebody who was just like evil, and everything he did was evil. So I think I might be quite susceptible to that. I don't like to think that I would be, but I think, if I'm honest with myself, there's something, a leader comes along and says, "I'm going to fix all of your problems." It's very appealing. So I might be a Darkling follower. Also, I really like the color black. So, you know,
That's
in terms of
fitting.
style, yeah.
Shall I check if there are any questions on the live
We
stream?
have another Twitter question.
Oh,
Sure. Check the live thing, and I'll also do the next Twitter question.
Oh yeah, there are questions here, I think. Oh.
We're so excited! Oh my god! Are they just people being like, "What's up?"
How did you come up with the Grisha story?
The whole thing?
Yeah, just the whole thing. Were you just walking down the street and thinking, "Geez, that's it," or were you just?
I mean, the story I always tell about Shadow and Bone and the creation of Shadow and Bone is that I was in a house in the mountains. I'd gone out of town, and everybody had gone to go to dinner, and I didn't feel like going. I stayed behind to read my book, and And I fell asleep reading, and when I woke up, the sun had set, and the room was completely dark. And I instantly decided that somebody had broken into the house and was just waiting there to kill me. Because that's what people do, is they wait for you to wake up before they kill you.
Totally.
And I was completely terrified, and eventually I calmed down and I found the light switches and turned them all on and like locked every window and door and checked under the beds and checked in the closets. But I couldn't shake this idea, the fact that no matter how old you get or how smart you think you are, that fear of the dark really never goes away. It's always there. So there's always something in the closet. There's always something with too many people lurking in the woods. And I thought, well, what if darkness was a place and you couldn't turn the lights on? What if people ran across the street? Well, what if darkness was a place and the monsters you imagined lurking there were real and you had to fight them on your own territory? So then I'm lying in bed thinking about this, and I'm like, all right, well, what would the monsters look like from having evolved in the dark so long? And what kind of power would have created such a place? And how would you fight them? And how would you destroy it? And why would you ever go in there? Like, if there's a dark territory crawling with monsters, maybe don't go inside. So I was just like, for thought. So it was like one question that led to another question, another question, another question. And I always feel like those are the best ideas, the ones that won't quite let you sleep. And so I sort of got up and started taking notes, and I drew this country. And when I say country, it was like a lump that had a line through it. It was like Shadowfold. And that's really, all of the ideas came from that dark territory. And really came from the idea of, initially I was like, okay, well maybe we have to get a magical object out of it. And then I was like, that feels a little trite. All right, well what if it has literally, since we're making darkness literal, what if this country has literally been torn in two? What if they have no access to their ports and harbors, and so they have to send people across this territory in order to trade and have contact with the outside world? And everything sort of came out of that. Ravka's political situation, the enemies to the north and south, the powers of the Grisha, the Darkling's own power, all of it came from that initial idea about the Shadowfold.
We know there's gonna be a movie.
Yes, maybe.
Maybe. What would you cast for Alina?
I don't. Me. I don't know. I mean, part of the problem is that I'm not really aware of working actresses. I tend to find the people that are cast as Alina feel super glamorous to me and not quite right. But I mean, the one person who cropped up really early on, I've never really seen edits with her, is, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, I think it's Mia Bosakowska. She was just in Crimson Peak. I mean, she's very beautiful, but she also, she dresses, like when she's not being glammed up, there's this quality to her face, and this kind of rawness to her that I feel like, I don't know, I really see Alina in her sometimes, but I don't think she would be the right person for the, I don't know, she's probably not the right person, but that's sort of who I kind of imagined, yeah.
Or would you know, I don't know how to say it. Of je als er heel veel met de film zou gaan bemoeien had.
Did you have a lot to say about the movie, or is it just the producers?
I have very little to say about it. I mean, honestly, I don't know if we ever get the green light and we move forward. I don't know how involved or uninvolved I might be. I do trust, David Heyman is the producer attached, and he made the Harry Potter movies, and he made Gravity, and he has a really good track record for working with authors. And we talked when I was in London, not this last time, but the time before, and, I do trust him. Like, he really seemed to care about the story, and I think he takes seriously what authors bring to the table. I think sometimes when people make adaptations of young adult works, they think that they need to fix them. They don't trust the story. They think somehow that the book duped the audience, like, oh, all you people who think you like that, no, you don't really like that. We know what's good. We know what people like, and it's sort of, instead of asking what really worked in the story, they look at it as something that's broken and that needs to be fixed. And I don't think he looks at stories that way. So, yeah, we'll see.
We have another Twitter question.
Okay.
You said you sometimes listen to music while writing. What music do you listen to?
Well, it really depends on the book. I mean, I can tell you that when I drafted Six of Crows and the sequel to Six of Crows, I listened to a classical composer named Ludovico Einaudi. Do you know his work?
I really like it.
Oh, love him. Okay, so I'll talk later. I really, really love his music, and for whatever reason, I find it it really helps me draft. But then when I was revising it and sort of building the world more, I listened to a lot of The Clash, The Pixies, TV on the radio, the Black Keys. It was a much more, the Ramones, it was a much more cacophonous sound. That's the kind of music I grew up on and that I really like. So there was a lot of that in the creation kind of the world of Six of Crows. When I was writing Shadow and Bone, Shadow and Bone was more like, I wrote a lot of them in silence, and then I would use music to kind of cue if I needed to get into the mood for a particular scene. And so I used a lot of Florence and the Machine for that, and some Stevie Nicks. And then Siege and Storm was sort of like that as well. Siege and Storm, I used a lot more music, and I've put a playlist up. There's a playlist up on Spotify for Six of Crows as well. And Red Rising, I never posted my playlist for it, but it was a little bit different because I had specific songs that I listened to for each scene again and again. I just put them on loop, and now I can't listen to any of the music because I hear it and I'm like, oh no! So yeah. I try. Music is to me a really powerful tool for writing. Sometimes I feel like until I find the song for a character, I don't really know them yet.
Maybe 10 minutes if there's no suggestion.
In the meantime, I got another question.
Okay.
Keep coming.
Keep them coming.
You're quite a well-known author now. That's basically.
I am extremely famous.
Thank
you for acknowledging.
You have a lot of reviews on Goodreads, so basically you're famous. That also means you're getting a lot of positive comments about your books. Do they make you feel really happy that people like them, or does it up the pressure to be even better the next time?
I mean, both. The response to, I really didn't know what the response to Six of Crows was going to be like because it's so different from the Grisha trilogy. And I felt like it was the best thing I had written, but I didn't know if people would embrace it or not. So that has been incredibly gratifying. And I think it's a sort of strange experience because I have many friends who are authors and of varying levels of success. And so I've seen people write incredible books, beautiful books that never get acknowledged. And there's a feeling of how arbitrary that could be. You're lucky enough to get a real push from your publisher. You're lucky enough to get the right review at the right time. So it's gratifying, but it's also sort of always tempered by this understanding that a lot of it is good fortune. And yeah, I do think there's some pressure. I think that always comes along, but I think that in some ways that comes from the characters as well as the readers. I want readers to be happy with the way the series concludes. It's strange to talk about two books as a series, but a duology or duet or whatever we want to call it, that I want them to love the second book as much as the first. But I also think there's this sort of tremendous responsibility to the characters. I got you into this situation, and now I have to pay it off. I can't just leave you there. So.
There was another question there. Which cover do you like the most from the Grisha?
I think my favorite is Siege and Storm, and I think that's true of the Dutch covers as well. I wish people could see, I tried to take photos of it, I took 30 photos the other day, how gorgeous the Dutch covers are. There's this beautiful metallic sheen on the side, and the red has I think the Siege and Storm cover is my favorite of the three. Although of all of them, I think the Six of Crows cover is my favorite. It's really beautiful, and the Dutch version is beautiful, and the Dutch special edition has the red foil from the UK edition, and it also has the black pages from the US edition, and I mean it's really gorgeous. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You talked about the sequel to Six of Crows and of course the Grisha books.
Yes.
And about that you have plans for after that. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the genre, only that?
All I can tell you is that there will be fantastical elements. Like, you know, like there's, if I get to do the things I have planned, they will be things that are set closer to our world that have fantasy in them. And I really hope to be able to talk about that stuff soon. And I can tell you that I talked about this the other day, but I have a story coming out in Stephanie Perkins' new anthology, Summer Days, Summer Nights, which is set in our world, but definitely has some magic in it. And I also wrote a story for Slasher Girls and Monster Boys, which I don't know if you would call it magic, but there's definitely something that is not normal happening in that story. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Okay.
In which universe of all the books you've read would you like to live?
There's a lot of fantasy worlds I love and science fiction worlds I love, but that I would not want to live in. Like, I don't want to live in Westeros, okay, at all. Like, I'd like to visit for an hour and hide behind a column, and then I would like to leave. I don't want to live on Arrakis. Like, I think the only place I would want to live would be the world of Harry Potter. And in a particular time, like not when we're at war with the Death Eaters, but definitely Harry Potter for sure. Yeah. What house are you?
Gryffindor or Ravenclaw.
Gryffindor.
Raven.
Slytherin.
I think we're going to have to ask the last question.
Okay.
How do you feel about being represented by Blossom Books?
Horrible. Please, someone get me out.
Go out of the room for now.
It's okay. I will tell you something. I also didn't realize this until I saw the books up close. I feel like they put so much love into these editions, and they're full of these incredible details. All of the maps are different colors in each book, and all of the chapter headers are specific to the books, and everything is just I don't know. It's really nice to have a publisher that cares that deeply about the book being. I don't know. It means a lot. I think especially when you're a fantasy reader, we like to hold the book in our hands, and I think readers respond to that. So I don't know. They're wonderful. They brought me here. They've been very nice to me. So I'm very proud to be with Blossom Books. Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have you here too. So
Thank you very much. It's been amazing.
I think that would be about it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or
No, not on Twitter.
Not something about the fan art from the release party.
Yeah, they will do that later.
Okay.
Okay.
There's fan art.
Yeah.
So should we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think that should, yeah.
Top scenes. Do it.
I think I should go and try and shut this off.
Can we just close it?
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Just throw the laptop out the window.
Goodbye, guys. This should work.